What's going on, my good people out there? So gonna do a quick video going over some very entry-level PWC, personal watercraft, two-stroke identification versus a four-stroke, as well as some DIY repairs, sort of. What can you do when they're not running right? So first of all, let's talk about identification. So these skis, for example, are 2005s. And by the year, that can be kind of tricky because 2005s did both two strokes and four strokes. So by the year, most of these 2005s are going to be four strokes. But if we look inside the ski, we'll notice right away that is definitely a two stroke. How do we know? Well, one way we can tell is by this oil reservoir. It'll have this additional oil reservoir. So two strokes use oil as a consumable, same as gas. So it burns gas and oil. So it's not reusing the oil, right? There's no oil that needs to be changed. It's burning it. And so you've got to make sure that you're filling this up, right? You're filling this up with two-stroke oil, not four-stroke oil. That's important. So two-stroke oil comes from here. It runs down and it pumps into the engine, just like the fuel does. Just pumps into, they meet at the intake at the carb and get injected into the engine. And it burns it. That's why they're so smoky. So that's one way you can identify it. Like I say, most times, anybody that's seen them more than once, you can look at it right away and go, oh yeah, that's a two-stroke. If you see a fuel shut-off valve, that's also going to be a two-stroke. And we'll just go over and look at a four-stroke real quick so you can see how blaringly obvious it is once you've seen both of them. So this one is definitely a four-stroke. Some key indicators, we see an oil fill cap and a dipstick. I mean, that's a tail giveaway, right? Why does it have a dipstick? Because we need to know how much oil is in the engine. It's recirculating that oil, right? It's got an oil filter that needs to be changed because the oil isn't supposed to be burning. It stays in the engine. Only the gas is burning, right? You can tell it's quite a bit bigger. Pretty obvious once you've seen both of them. But if you don't know what you don't know, so hopefully now you know. Okay, so now let's talk about just some common, real entry-level common issues that we're going to go across. So, the problem with these two strokes is nobody works on them anymore. So that's the first thing. It's a turnkey world. People just expect things to run, and that's just not what two strokes were. So what happens is people buy these two strokes. They don't even know that they own a two stroke. Maybe they run it out of oil because they don't even know they're supposed to fill it. And they ruin the engine. And then they just sell it to somebody else, which is super unfortunate because actually even if this had no compression, because it's on the trailer and not in the water, I could start it and it would run and sound pretty good, actually. So you can sell a two-stroke with a bad engine on a trailer, start it up for the next sucker that's going to buy it, and they go, oh yeah, it looks like it runs good. That will never run on the lake. It's not going to do it. So just be aware, if you're looking at buying a two-stroke, the very first thing you want to do is a compression test, okay? You want 120 psi at the minimum, and you want them within 5% of each other. So you wouldn't want one to be at 120 and the other one to be at 100, or even 150 and 120, right? Like you don't want a big difference between the two. But if you check it and each one's around 120, it's probably okay. Like I say, we won't get into too deep of the details of that. In a pinch, you could even just take your spark plug out and put your thumb over it and then crank it, and you should just feel a lot of pressure. If it's got a bad cylinder, you'll know it. No air is going to come out. Okay, so fortunately with these two skis, they both have good compression, or decent compression, I should say. I think they're both around 120. So they both start up and work real well. The issue, the symptom that as it was presented to me, is it's just kind of a performance issue on the lake. So as I understand it, as they're giving it gas, you know, maybe they get some throttle response down low, but as they give it gas, it just kind of bogs, you know, low RPMs, it just doesn't want to take off. And then sometimes randomly it will work real good, and then it doesn't again. So what we did is a basic tune-up on it, put some sea foam in it, and now what I'm suggesting that they do is run it on the lake. So it's got to be run on the lake for at least a tank of gas, maybe even 2. And as they're running on the lake, so I want them to give it gas and wait for that moment that it's kind of falling on its face, that it's bogging down. So as they continue to hold the throttle, they're going to take the choke and just flip it like that as they're holding this right at that spot. Don't hold it too long or it's just going to die, and it's going to flood, and you're going to have a hell of a time getting it started again. You're just going to flip it as you're giving it gas. And almost certainly what's going to happen is the ski's going to take off, and it'll drive real great. So as long as you're giving it throttle, it's going to drive real good. You're going to be like, oh, it's fixed, until you let go of the throttle and you're going to have to start all over again. You're going to have to give it gas, flip the choke, let it take off. Now the reason that's working is we are creating a vacuum inside the carburetor. So we're creating a vacuum, and then as we're creating a vacuum, we're going to close it off. We're going to choke off the vacuum, which is going to cause a pressure inside the jets, within the carburetor, and hopefully suck some of that gummed up crap that's in there through. So with that fuel treatment in there, we're going to continue doing that, and then the idea being is hopefully it just over time fixes itself. The only other option is to rebuild the carburetor, which is expensive. It's hard to find anybody to work on them. It's much better just to try it and see what happens, right? Pretty good success doing this little trick. It actually works pretty good. So a couple other things that can be tried is running the fuel on reserve. So how this works is it's just a stem inside the gas tank. So the reserve stem goes all the way to the bottom of the gas tank. The on goes like 3/4 of the way down. So as fuel comes down, if it's on, when it hits here, it's going to run out of gas. And then you got to switch it over to the other side to reserve. Now it can get gas. Now it sucks gas from here. Well, these stems have little filters on the end, and those filters can get clogged. So sometimes just running it all the time on reserve will do the trick. Not always, but it's something worth trying. Also, these selectors can kind of get gummed up, especially on Seadoos. If they have, this one doesn't have it. If it did, we'd have to switch it out. But they'll have those gray fuel lines. Those gray fuel lines are garbage. You got to replace those. That's not the case here. But that's not to say that the fuel selector couldn't be kind of gummed up. So just something else to know. I don't want to go too deep in this video. I just wanted to give kind of some basic, try this. Run it. You want to run it with premium fuel or ethanol free. And the problem is you have a couple skis, and it starts out with like this one will run better than this one. Maybe not by much, but it just runs better. And so what happens? You're at the beach and somebody wants to use one. Well, they only take this one because it runs better. They don't want to take the broken one. Well, that just makes things worse. You gotta drive the broken one. The more you drive it, the better it will run, until eventually that's not going to work anymore. So I always highly encourage people to do a basic tune-up on it, get good quality fuel in there, add some sea foam, or sea foam's kind of the only one I think actually works, but use some fuel treatment, and then just run it and see what happens. It's relatively inexpensive and pretty decent success. So try that out. Hopefully it works.